Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports for the Canada Grand Prix preview for the weekend. Of course, this is the 9th round, I believe, of Formula 1 racing this season, and yeah, home Grand Prix for Lance Stroll in Montreal, and I'm joined by Reese here, who's down in Durban. Reese, what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Yes, very much looking forward to getting underway here at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit in Montreal, as you did say. It is going to be a very exciting race weekend, I think, ahead of us. This track has always provided some great races. There's also some mixed weather conditions coming ahead of us this weekend, so we'll have to wait and see what happens in terms of the weather. Will we get a wet race, a wet qualifying maybe as well? Yeah,
I mean, it's bound to be an interesting race, and also Formula 1 drivers tend to really like the circuit, as I say. So they favour this as one of their favourite tracks in Canada each season. And, you know, lots of very interesting things can happen in this track. We haven't seen it for a little while, since 2011, but we do have that famous wall of champions that is just right at the end of the track, just on that start-finish straight as you come around the last bend. We've seen drivers hit that wall before. The last champion to do so is Sebastian Vettel, and I'm sure we're going to see one of the drivers on the grid hitting that wall again this weekend, and we'll finally have a safety car perhaps this weekend, because, you know, the last 3 races, we've not had a single safety car, which is unheard of in Formula 1.
Yes, it's very bizarre not to have had a safety car in the last 3 races. I mean, I certainly was expecting to have one in Monaco, where, I mean, we did have a few cars going off track, but not off enough in, well, to call for a safety car. But I mean, yeah, maybe we will get one this race weekend. Will we get some more groundhogs running across the track? We've seen it in the past here. I mean, we might get some of that again, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get another clean race weekend where we don't get another safety car. It's very weird.
Hope not, if I'm honest, because I think the safety cars are certainly what provides a lot of entertainment and changes up strategies. And I think at the end of the day, what's really benefited Red Bull for the last few races is the lack of safety cars. They haven't had to try and restart and get ahead of the pack again and risk not taking a bit of damage and stuff like that. So hopefully we will see a safety car come out, and at least makes the midfield battle and even the top of the grid battle very interesting. Also, lots of upgrades coming this weekend for a particular green team who are treating this as their home Grand Prix, of course. That's Lance Stroll and Aston Martin. So we'll go through those upgrades in a bit. But just going back to the circuit in Montreal, just some facts about it. The first Grand Prix was hosted in 1978. The number of laps are 70. The circuit length, 4.361 kilometers, and the total race distance is 305.27 kilometers. And yes, we go and talk about that wall of champions, which has had Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, and Michael Schumacher all colliding in the same wall. So Sebastian Vettel also in 2011 went into that wall. So yeah, could it claim Max Verstappen this weekend, or even Lewis Hamilton? You know, previous champions, of course. Yeah, that's going to be the story that needs to be unfolded. Yeah, so we're just going through here and looking now at just Aston Martin and Alonso actually calling this a dream reality of double podium in Montreal, as they aim for an aggressive target. Now, Alonso goes and says he basically is hoping that Aston Martin can somehow pull out a double podium. Do you think that's at all possible?
I mean, I think we'll have to wait and see what happens with their upgrades. They are supposedly bringing a massive upgrade package this weekend to be able to take the fight to Mercedes. Mercedes made a big jump last race weekend in Spain, but will that new upgrade package from Aston Martin be able to help them compete? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, there's also some other teams bringing some big upgrades this weekend, so we might get a bit of a shake-up. Whether Aston Martin will be able to take that 1-2, I don't really know. Maybe Fernando Alonso might be able to finish a bit higher, but I'm still very skeptical about Lance Stroll being able to finish on the podium.
Yeah, and we have seen so far this season that home Grand Prix have not favoured the drivers at home. I mean, we go and look at Monaco. Charles Leclerc, not a great race at all for the Monegasque in Monaco. We go and look at Logan Sargent in Miami, finished stone dead last. Actually, I'm not even sure he finished the race. I think he DNF'd, didn't he?
I can't remember.
Either way, he was definitely last in 20th. We go and look at the 2 Spanish drivers of Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz in Spain. Not a fantastic race weekend for them either. So the home Grand Prix have not really been favouring drivers much at all. I mean, also Oscar Piastri in Australia didn't have a great race weekend in Australia at all. So Lance Stroll now, the next home driver for Canada, it's not boding well based off of the first few races of the season.
Yeah, just checking there. Logan Sargent did finish that Miami Grand Prix, but he was a lap down on the race leader, of course, of Max Verstappen. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like home Grand Prix have been all too lucky for the home Grand Prix drivers. I mean, we'll have to see in Canada if Lance Stroll can have a good weekend. Maybe he might break that curse, or maybe we'll see it carrying on later into the year. I mean, Silverstone will be a very bad race then, because we do have quite a few British drivers on the grid.
Yeah, and Silverstone is, of course, the next race after this, I think. So, yeah, that's going to be a very interesting race. But nonetheless, we're in Canada, and going back to Aston Martin, and Alonso was asked in an interview, and just goes and says here in this article, the Spaniard was on an impressive podium streak earlier this year. His charge somewhat derailed in Barcelona at a track that didn't suit the AMR 23, but he expects that to change here, especially given the team have brought upgrades to the circuit. And here is Alonso speaking. I think it should be a good weekend, but you never know until you hit the track. We also had expectations in Barcelona, and we didn't perform in that race. Let's see. We have a couple of new parts in the car as well as this, at this race. Depending on the weather, we will try to test them and validate them, and hopefully can be a little more competitive than Barcelona. Just carrying on here, it says here, or let's say here, you need to have obvious confidence in the car. It's a semi-street circuit. You get very close to the walls. You need to ride the curbs as well. It's a bumpy circuit. Weather normally plays a big factor here, as it will do again this weekend. Experience always helps. This is the 17th or 18th Canadian Grand Prix for me, so that always helps. I mean, that's insane. 17th or 18th Canadian Grand Prix. I mean, he's been in the sport way too long, Fernando Alonso.
I don't think so. I mean, he can stay forever until he's tired, I guess. I mean, I certainly really enjoy having him on the grid. He shakes it up quite a lot. He takes the fight to some of the top drivers who've been untouchable. I mean, him and Sergio Perez had a good fight in Saudi Arabia. Him and Max Verstappen have been close in some races as well. I mean, I'd like to see him in a very competitive car, being able to take it to the Red Bulls. It will just make the season so unforgettable if he is able to really take the fight and maybe challenge for the championship.
Yeah, and just going to Alonso's comments there as well, it seems to basically suggest that they back the car even in wetter weather, or at least weather that's not dry. Of course, you know, they're going to say weather dependent, and we still think the car will certainly help. So clearly the upgrades are going to be, you'd imagine, relatively drastic.
Well, I think they'd have to be. I mean, Mercedes have brought big upgrades to Spain, well, to Monaco, and then it worked in Spain. But the Aston Martins fall back a little bit. They need to pick it up again if they want to be able to take the fight to Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship, which they were very close up to a point, and then they got overtaken in Spain. But yeah, I mean, they need to pull up their socks now, otherwise they are going to just get left in the dust.
Yeah. Lawrence Stroll, of course, aiming for a double podium this weekend. It is a home Grand Prix for Aston Martin's one driver and their owner. So it's a big ask, of course, for both of his drivers, but maybe Aston Martin can do it with their brand new upgrades. However, they are challenging the likes of Mercedes, who, of course, wowed the world with their new upgrades, finally coming back into the fight a little bit. And on that, Lewis Hamilton has got new contract news, and also talking about the progress the car has been made. And Toto Rush also saying there's no rush yet about all this, but seems to be turning the right direction for Mercedes.
Yes, I also have that article at the moment, just with Lewis Hamilton talking about his contract talks. Very, very interesting. Toto Wolff was hoping that they'd have it done by the Canadian Grand Prix. Still no news though, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to start today, of course, so it is very interesting that there's still no news. However, I'm sure it's not too much of a problem. Maybe they're just ironing out a few last-minute things and just a couple of agreements and otherwise. And yeah, just going into the article here, and it just goes and says, we had a good meeting just recently. This is Wolf speaking, of course. They are very complex contracts. It's not just a simple driving contract. Oh, sorry, this is Hamilton speaking.
Yes, Hamilton.
Right now, I'm planning to be here and racing for a decent chunk of time. You have to just you've got to just explore all avenues in the sense of how you can continue to expand your partnership with such a great organization. It's not as easy as just saying go ahead, and I don't have to be in a rush. He added in Thursday's press conference, I've seen Toto. We have talked several times. We have a great relationship. It will get done when it's done. If that's next week and month's time, as long as it's done, I'm not really bothered. and also asked whether progress has been made. The 7-time world champion answered, yep, nothing else new to add. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I wonder if talks are just stalling a little bit. I wonder if Hamilton's just trying to waste time to see if they do maybe get to the bottom of this car. If they are able to be competitive, then maybe he will stay. If not, then I'm sure he has a lot of other teams that are certainly very interested in him. I mean, he's a 7-time world champion. He's going to have some demand for sure.
And now looking at Red Bull, and mainly Sergio Perez, in fact. And I've got an article here that goes and says Perez has targeted Canada as his restart, basically, to the season. He wants to get rid of the bad weekends, and he wants to challenge Verstappen. It all comes to this weekend. So he's aiming for this weekend to be his restart, to try and challenge Max Verstappen for that Drivers' Championship. Of course, Max Verstappen leading that by a country mile now due to Perez's last few races, which he's been relatively poor in. But, you know, do you think Perez can come back at Max Verstappen, or do you think he's got too many mistakes in him?
I mean, it's interesting. Sergio Perez is saying he wants Canada to be his restart. Spain should have been his restart. He had a bad weekend in Monaco. He should have completely just wiped that from his mind, come into Spain with a good mindset, and try to wipe the floor in Spain. But once again, he just did not hit the floor running and has once again fallen back on his teammates in terms of pace as well as in terms of points for the World Championship.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be able to... Well, I say I don't know. I know he's not going to be able to take the fight to Max this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, lots of races still to come. Maybe that conversation changes depending, but I doubt it as well. So he's currently sitting 53 points behind Max Verstappen. So you need some serious drops for Max Verstappen to allow Perez anywhere near. Nonetheless, he knows that he needs to get a season back on track. And he goes and says, I basically want to restart, to go again. Monaco was all down to me. I had a really bad mistake. Then in Barcelona in the qualifying again. It was tricky with the damp conditions. We didn't manage to have a good quali, and we paid the price on Sunday. I'm looking forward to getting back on form we had in the early season. It was difficult in Barcelona. It's the only time that I had difficulties with the car. I struggled through the weekend, so it was tricky in Barcelona. Other than that, I think in Monaco we had the pace to really have a very good weekend, but I did a mistake. I was caught out by the tailwind, the car ahead, and so on. I think the first time we had difficulties was in Barcelona. And asked what he has learned from Verstappen during their time as teammates that can be used to emerge from his troubles, Perez added, I think he's been able to deliver when it mattered in qualifying. He hasn't had a bad weekend at all this year, and I think that's what I need. I can't afford to have any bad weekends anymore. I think I've had 2 or 3 bad weekends in the season, so I really have to get rid of those and keep the consistency high, because I think Max has been really good and consistent throughout this period. So lots of praise for his teammate, and of course recognition of the fact that Max Verstappen's not making stupid mistakes like he is.
Yes, Max is just very consistent in all of his weekends and his performance in qualifying as well as in all the practice sessions. I mean, we even saw in Spain when everyone was going out on runs in the wet, Max Verstappen was just a bit more cautious. He's thinking of the World Championship and thinking of what happens if he does lose it. I mean, he didn't want to go out onto the track when it was wet because he decided, why take that chance? And I mean, that's thinking like a world champion. You have to calculate all the risks and know when to take them and when not to. I mean, and Sergio Perez just doesn't seem to have that mindset yet.
No. And I'll tell you who also struggled with that mindset last season, and we're seeing Perez with a similar sort of thing. That is the likes of Charles Leclerc. Of course, last season had a few blips which really took him out of the Drivers' Championship well before Ferrari started having their big tactical issues, etc., etc. But Charles Leclerc now also speaking, and unfortunately, it's not great news for all the you Ferrari fans, as he admits he is not expecting any miracles at this weekend's Canadian Grand Prix off the back of his pointless outing in Barcelona. Meanwhile, his Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz is expecting the layout of the circuit in Montreal to suit the SF23, but that there may be increased competition for P2 in the Constructors' Championship. And going and speaking here, Leclerc admits he's not expecting a huge step forward. It was a very difficult weekend for me especially, said Leclerc. On the track, we don't have anything new, so I don't think we will have any miracles, but we need to just try to maximize our package. We need to understand more this package, the way we should set up the car in order to maximize it. In Spain, we were quite easily off the window, and then we were losing quite a bit of performance. So we've learned a lot, but I don't think it will be a huge step forward. So, as a Ferrari fan, you must be reading that going,
yeah. I mean, certainly not great news from that Ferrari team. I mean, We want to see them getting to the bottom of their new upgrade package. We want them to be competing for that top step. I mean, I keep saying it. I keep reiterating it all the time. We want to see more competition at the top of the field. I mean, Ferrari just need to start learning now. I mean, their World Endurance Championship team won on their debut back at Le Mans. I mean, that's not an easy feat to do. Certainly, they can take some of that information from that team, or some of those personnel who certainly seem to be doing very well, take them across to your Formula One departments and get them to help out, because you certainly need the help at the moment.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting, isn't it, that the way Ferrari have been talking, and Leclerc and the whole setup in Formula One for Ferrari have been talking this season. They're basically like us. They're just watching, basically, from the midfield of the race. They can see exactly what's happening. I mean, Leclerc goes and answers here to a question as to what's expecting Sunday afternoon. He says, I feel like Aston Martin will be doing a step forward this weekend. Red Bull, they will always be in front, as always. Mercedes, I think, are the team. We don't really know where to put them coming this weekend, but at the end, it doesn't matter. We just need to focus on ourselves. And it's hilarious because he goes and adds the focus on ourselves at the end of that, but basically it goes and shows what Ferrari's problems are this year. They just seem to be watching everybody else because their car's just not good enough. They're going commenting on everybody else. The Aston Martin, Mercedes, Red Bull. Yeah, no, they're all going to be at the top. Not us, though. Not us.
Yes, I mean, it's certainly tricky. Those Red Bulls have been so fast this entire year. I mean, Max Verstappen can equal Ayrton Senna's win tally this weekend, which is a huge, huge milestone to reach in your career. As well as, I mean, Red Bull are going to take their 100th, I think it's their 100th podium or 100th race win. Yeah, 100th win they could take this weekend. I mean, they really need to fight quite hard if they want to take that away from the Bulls. And
adding to Ferrari's more or less insult so far in Formula One recently, I mean, Sainz was being interviewed and was going and speaking about the battle of the battle for second in the championship, of course, behind Red Bull, and it's between Scuderia, Mercedes, and Aston Martin for much of the season. The Spaniard believes Alpine has joined the party, and I don't think he's necessarily saying Alpine are going to challenge for second. I think what he's really reiterating is the fact that Mercedes and Aston Martin are fighting for second, and Ferrari are going to need to fight Alpine for fourth.
I mean, Alpine have stepped it up a bit. They're bringing some big upgrade packages this weekend. If Ferrari aren't careful, they're going to get leapfrogged, and then they're really going to be in the trouble there. I mean, it's not looking good for them.
No, we've got Carlos Sainz speaking. He goes and says, I think Alpine are about to join us. I think they are very, very close to joining that battle. I still think we have a bit of an upper hand between Aston Martin and Mercedes. I think it's very, very close. Normally, Aston has the upper hand. Let's see. Since Barcelona, I think it's going to be Mercedes. So, lots of different things we can look at in terms of just behind Red Bull. Everyone's still expecting, however, Red Bull to be right at the top. And so are we, of course. And Mika Häkkinen, however, has made a wild prediction for the team that could topple Red Bull and talk about this. This is bizarre. So I just found this article. I thought I'd just read it. It says Mika Häkkinen has made a bold prediction for McLaren's season, claiming that his former team could challenge Red Bull as the season progresses. The Woking-based team have a major upgrade package to look forward to, but McLaren still have plenty of work to do to find themselves in the top half of the grid, let alone fighting with Red Bull. Despite the impressive performances of both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri this season, I don't know which impressive performances they speak of, but McLaren currently hold just 17 points to their name, leaving them tied with Alfa Romeo for 6th in the constructors' standings. Häkkinen, however, says this. I don't think anyone is able to catch up this year. The only surprise I think we'll see is McLaren's possible progress during the next 2 months. And Häkkinen was very confident that his prediction that McLaren will take a major step forward before the end of the 2023 season. I think they will surprise us massively. Just in terms of speed of the car, they will probably challenge Red Bull. I mean, really?
I don't think so. I think that's a bit of a wild overestimate of McLaren's pace. They certainly seem to have good qualifying pace. I mean, we saw in Spain how Lando Norris was able to qualify quite well, but they just have absolutely no race pace.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really bold and somewhat dim-witted. Sorry, I just can't get over the fact that he goes and says, out of all the teams in the grid, McLaren, who have probably been one of the biggest disappointments of the season. No.
Oh, yes.
They're the ones that are going to challenge Red Bull for pace.
I
Really
think we
struggled.
likely are going to see Ferrari pick up the pieces first. Ferrari or Mercedes will pick up the pieces before McLaren will, for sure. They've got way more resources than McLaren, and I mean they've already started picking up the pieces a little bit. Mercedes have certainly made big improvements. Ferrari just need to also.
Yeah, I agree. Just just need to get up there. So just wrapping up here, just going and looking at the last 5 race winners in Canada. So Max Verstappen, of course, won in 2022, and we didn't have a Canadian race in 2021 or 2020. Lewis Hamilton won in 2019 before Max Verstappen, of course, in 2022. Sebastian Vettel in 2018 with Ferrari, and Lewis Hamilton in 2017 with Mercedes. So we see Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes, the last 4 race wins. Could we see Red Bull again there, or could we somehow out of nowhere, screwing with everyone's prediction, see somebody else's name there?
I mean, I certainly think you have to back Red Bull. They've been so strong this season. I think they're going to take it again this race weekend. I mean, their car's so fast down the straights, as well as in corners like the circuit has. I mean, it's certainly a circuit that does perform to their car. I think it will be difficult for the other teams to take the fight to Red Bull this weekend.
So we do have rain predicted, however, for Sunday, so that could throw a big spanner of the works, of course. So, I mean, we know how good Max Verstappen is in the wet, though. That's the problem. It's that however good you think he is in dry, he's even better in the wet, which just is incredible.
Well, you say that, but he did struggle a little bit in Monaco, down to the fact that the car was, of course, set up for the dry. But, I mean, Fernando Alonso was quite quick in the wet there.
Yeah, I was going to go and say Fernando Alonso is the only other driver I'd go and say who competes with Max Verstappen in the wet, because he is an incredible wet track driver. And
you also cannot discount or and not include Lewis Hamilton. He is absolutely fast in the wet as well. He's shown in the past how he's been so dominant. I think it was Portimao a few years ago when it went from wet to dry conditions, and he stayed on a set of intermediates until they pretty much wore down to a set of slicks. He is extremely talented in the wet as well. We definitely can't count him out.
No. So what it speaks to is experience. So the experienced driver is going to favour themselves in the rain, and we've seen those not with much experience, as we saw in Monaco, the likes of Logan Sargent, Lance Stroll, ending up in walls and otherwise prematurely ending their races. So, you know, it's not going to be a great weekend for Aston Martin if we do see the wet, because I do think Lance Stroll is going to really struggle in that. But maybe Fernando Alonso pulls something out of the bag and gets himself, I don't know, maybe even a race win out of nowhere. All these sort of things could come this weekend. And Reese, as a result, I'm going to ask, what is your top 3? What is your podium prediction for this weekend?
I'm going to be a little bit conservative with P1, of course. I mean, it's pretty much a known at this point. Max Verstappen is going to take the race win. Then I'm going to say Fernando Alonso P2, and then Lewis Hamilton P3.
Okay, that's quite.
I don't expect to see any Ferraris near the top this weekend.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
especially off of their comments as well, which has just been so dire, really, to read. I'm going to stick with you with Max Verstappen in 1, and yeah, I'll probably go Alonso in 2. But I think I'm going to say Perez in 3. I think Perez will have a relatively decent race as well. So I think it's going to be Max Verstappen, then Alonso, then Perez, and then I'll put Hamilton in 4th. So yeah, that's my prediction. And let us know, guys, in the comments, of course, what your predictions are for this race weekend as well. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. We're going to wrap this up now. Reece, do you have any final comments going into the Canada Grand Prix?
Well, just really looking forward to this race weekend. I mean, as we've spoken about, it is going to be a very exciting weekend with those interchanging weather conditions. It should certainly throw a bit of a spanner in the works if we do get rain on Sunday. Maybe even get some rain in qualifying. That would certainly make things very, very exciting. But yes, please do come and join us for all of our streams that we will be doing. We'll be doing all of the practice sessions, qualifying, and the race on Sunday, of course.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for watching Forever Motorsports. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications, of course, to be notified about all future uploads. Thank you so much from Reece and me, Mark. You've been watching Forever Motorsports, and enjoy the Canada Grand Prix. Goodbye.